"Welcome to our annual harvest celebration," my father announced, his voice carrying across the decorated barn at River Edge Vineyard. "Today marks an exciting new chapter in our family's legacy. We're thrilled to announce that Andrea, fresh from completing her MBA, will be taking over as CEO." The crowd burst into applause while I sat frozen, my wine glass halfway to my lips. 6 months ago, I'd transferred my entire life savings to save this vineyard from foreclosure. Now I watch my younger sister step forward, radiant in her designer dress, having never worked a day in the fields. "My name is Jessica, and I'm 35 years old. I built my investment consulting firm from scratch, growing it into a successful business without ever asking my parents for help. While Andrea was getting her MBA paid for by our parents, I was working 60-hour weeks, learning the real meaning of success. That's why when they called me crying about the bank's foreclosure notice 6 months ago, I transferred $850, my entire life savings, without hesitation. "We're family," they said. "We trust each other." With her business education and fresh perspective, my father continued, "Andrea will lead River's Edge into a new era of innovation and growth. She has the perfect combination of formal education and understanding of our family's legacy." I watched Andrea bask in the congratulations, the same sister who'd spent her college years posting vineyard photo shoots rather than learning about soil composition or fermentation techniques, the same sister who couldn't tell our Cabernet from our Merlot. In a blind tasting last Christmas, my mother touched my arm gently. "Jessica, honey, I hope you understand Andrea's degree makes her the natural choice to handle the business side." I cut her off with a warm smile. "Of course, Mom, Andrea will do great." I raised my glass in a toast, keeping my voice steady despite the ice forming in my chest. "To the new CEO of River's Edge." Excusing myself, I stepped outside into the cool evening air and pulled out my phone, scrolling to a contact I hadn't expected to need: Rachel Thompson, the ruthless corporate lawyer I'd met at several wine industry events. "I need your help with a family business matter." I texted, "Are you free to meet tomorrow?" Her response came quickly, 10 a.m. at my office. "Bring any documentation you have." Rachel's office overlooked downtown Dallas, the morning sun glinting off the steel and glass buildings. She sat across from me, reviewing the bank statements showing my $850 transfer to River's Edge Vineyards account. "Let me get this straight," she said, looking up from the documents. "You transferred your entire life savings without any written agreement, not even a promissory note?" "They're my family," I replied, the words tasting bitter now. When they called about the foreclosure notice, all I could think about was saving our legacy. 3 generations of wine making about to be lost because they'd over-leveraged the property for Andrea's MBA program and a new tasting room she insisted they needed. Rachel leaned back in her chair. "And now they've made her CEO, despite your investment saving the vineyard." She paused, then added, "Tell me about the day you transferred the money. What exactly did they promise?" I closed my eyes, remembering that desperate phone call. "Dad said I'd be taken care of, that my investment would secure my place in the family business." Mom was crying, talking about how they make it up to me. I opened my eyes, anger rising. "Instead, they're acting like my contribution was just a daughter's duty." "Did anyone witness these conversations?" "Yes," I said, sitting up straighter. "Their accountant, Michael, was there when I visited to arrange the transfer. He seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation, kept suggesting we put something in writing. My parents dismissed him, saying it would insult the family trust." Rachel's eyes gleamed. "Michael could be very useful, but first we need to understand your ideal outcome. Do you want control of the vineyard?" I shook my head. "I want my investment back with interest. Let Andrea have her CEO title. I'll start my own vineyard with my money, one they'll have to compete with." "Good," Rachel smiled. "Because I have a plan. Your parents' actions constitute verbal fraud. With Michael's testimony and these bank records, we can build a strong case. But instead of filing immediately, we'll send a demand letter first, one that outlines exactly how their actions could be interpreted as deliberate financial manipulation." She pulled out a notepad. "We demand repayment of your $850, 0 plus 8% annual interest within 30 days. We'll also request all financial records. Since your investment, I suspect we'll find some interesting decisions made after they received your money." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "And if they refuse, then we file a lawsuit that will open their books to public scrutiny." "Something tells me your sister's MBA hasn't prepared her for that kind of crisis management." The demand letter landed like a bomb at River's Edge I was working from. My apartment when Andrea called, her voice shrill with panic. A lawsuit? Are you insane? You're going to destroy everything our family has built. She screamed. Dad's having chest pains. Because of you. I remained calm, letting her rant. The solution is simple. Return my investment with interest, $850. 0 plus 8% over 6 months. You have an MBA, Andrea. You can do the math. That money went into saving this vineyard, your heritage too, and now you want to bankrupt us. To get it back. She paused, her voice turning sly. Besides, your press lawyer should know that verbal agreements in family businesses are complicated. You can't prove anything. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Actually, I just got off the phone with Michael. Remember him, your accountant? He's given a sworn statement about the day I made the transfer, about how he advised putting our agreement in writing, and how Dad promised me a secured place in the business. The line went silent for a moment. Then, hold on, Dad wants to talk to you. My father's voice came through, strained and angry. Jessica, what are you doing to us after everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me. I cut him off. Let's talk about that. While you paid for Andrea's education, her MBA, her car, her apartment, I built my own life. The only time I asked for anything was when you promised me a future here in exchange for saving the vineyard. We never promised you control. Andrea has the education for this. I'm not asking for control anymore. I interrupted again. I'm asking for my money back. Money you took, knowing exactly what you plan to do with it. He switched tactics, his voice softening. Sweetheart, be reasonable. The vineyard doesn't have that kind of liquid capital right now. We have to take out another loan. Then I suggest you start talking to banks. You have 25 days left before I file the lawsuit. And Dad, every financial decision made since my investment will be scrutinized, including the new Mercedes Andrea's driving and that vacation you and Mom took to Tuscany last month. I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Then Mom came on the line. Jessica, please, she begged, come over for dinner. We can talk about this as a family. We're not family right now, Mom. We're business associates in a dispute. Have your lawyer call Rachel with your response. I hung up my hands shaking slightly. My phone immediately lit up with messages from relatives, ranging from angry accusations to pleas for peace. I ignored them all and opened my laptop, starting research on available vineyard properties in the next county. Soon River Edge would have some serious competition. The following week brought a revelation I hadn't expected. Michael, the accountant, called me for coffee, his voice tense with urgency. We met at a quiet cafe away from the vineyard, and he arrived clutching a thick folder. There's something you need to see, he said, glancing around nervously before sliding the folder across the table. I've been reviewing the book since your investment came in. The numbers, they don't add up. I opened the folder to find detailed financial records. Michael pointed to several highlighted entries. Your $850. Zero didn't just save the vineyard from foreclosure, it also funded a series of personal expenses that were logged as business cost. The new Mercedes listed as a delivery vehicle. The Tuscany trip, market research. Even Andrea's MBA had portions backdated as employee education expenses. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. They used my investment for all this. Michael nodded grimly. There's more to weeks before they announced Andrea as CEO. They registered a new company, River's Edge Holdings LLC. They've been quietly transferring vineyard assets to this new entity, the original vineyard company, the one you invested in. It's being hollowed out. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't just dismissing my contribution, they were actively working to ensure I couldn't claim anything. The vineyard I'd saved would soon be an empty shell. Your lawyer needs to see this, Michael said, his voice dropping lower. But you didn't get it from me. I'm looking for a new job already. I can't be associated with this kind of financial manipulation. I reached for my phone to call Rachel, but it buzzed first with a text from Andrea. Family meeting tonight. Don't bring your lawyer. Last chance to fix this like family. I showed Michael the text. He shook his head. They must have figured out I was looking into the records. They're going to try to convince you to back down or threaten me to. I replied, remembering similar family meetings from childhood when Andrea had gotten into trouble. Our parents had always found a way to shift the blame, to make me the unreasonable one for not protecting my sister. I texted back, any discussion needs to happen with lawyers present. Andrea's response was immediate, your choice, but don't come crying when this gets ugly. I called Rachel and sent her photos of Michael's documents, her sharp intake of breath Told me everything. This is exactly what I was looking for, she said. They've committed multiple financial improprieties. We're not just talking about a civil suit anymore. This could lead to criminal charges. I don't want them in jail, I said quickly. I just want my investment back. Then we use this as leverage. I'm drafting an amended demand letter now instead of 30 days. They have 48 hours to either return your money with interest or face an investigation. That will involve the SEC. The choice is theirs. After hanging up, I sat in the cafe long after Michael left, staring at the damning documents. Part of me felt guilty for what this could do to my family. But another part, the part that remembered every dismissal, every time they'd favored Andrea, every sacrifice I'd made to help them, felt a grim satisfaction. My phone kept buzzing with increasingly frantic messages from my parents and sister. I ignored them all and opened my laptop, pulling up the real estate listing I'd been eyeing. The Marshall Creek property, 200 acres of prime vineyard land just across the valley from river's edge, perfect soil composition, excellent sun exposure, and most importantly, a clear view of my family's vineyard. The amended demand letter hit harder than a hailstorm on harvest day. I was in the middle of a virtual tour of the Marshall Creek property when my father burst into my apartment waving the letter like a white flag of surrender. Criminal charges, he wheezed, his face red. Your own family. I raised you better than this. I minimized the browser window showing Marshall Creek's south-facing slopes. Did you raise me to accept being robbed? Because that's what you did. Took my $850 and used it for luxury cars and Italian vacations while plotting to lock me out of the business. We never meant, he started Ed, but I cut him off. Save it. I've seen the financial records. The new LLC. The asset transfers everything. You didn't just betray me. You tried to make sure I couldn't fight back. I stood up, my voice steady. You have 40 hours left to return my investment with interest, or Rachel files everything with the SEC. His face went from red to pale. You destroy your sister's future. She just started as CEO. Andrew, future. I laughed bitterly. What about mine? I earned that money while she was posting Instagram photos from business school. Money you promised would secure my place in the family business. We can still work something out, he pleaded. Maybe Andrea could share the CEO position, a co-leadership arrangement. I shook my head. I don't want to share leadership with Andrea. I want my money back, every penny, plus interest. Then you'll never have to worry about me competing with your precious CEO again. His eyes narrowed at the word competing. What does that mean? Just then my phone buzzed. It was the real estate agent handling Marshall Creek. Perfect timing. I answered on speaker. Hi Jessica, great news. The owner is very interested in your offer. They love your vision for expanding the vineyard's production. When can you meet to discuss just terms? I watched my father's face crumple as realization dawned. Marshall Creek wasn't just any property. It was River Edge's main competition. Back when my grandfather ran things, their wine had consistently won more awards until the owner retired and let the vines go. You wouldn't, he whispered, would start my own vineyard, use my expertise to compete with the business that stole from me. I learned everything about wine making from Grandpa Dad, everything. While Andrea was studying business cases, I was studying soil samples and weather patterns. Your grandfather would be ashamed, he said, trying one last emotional jab. No, he'd be proud. I'm not letting you and Andrea destroy his legacy with your greed. I turned back to my laptop. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a property to buy. Tick-tock. On that 40 hours, he left without another word, slamming the door behind him. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from Andrea. How dare you threaten Dad like this? You're just jealous of my success. Mom's crying because of you. I blocked her number and returned to the Marshall Creek listing. The property needed work, but I could see its potential. More importantly, its premium grapes and higher elevation would let me produce wines that would directly compete with River's Edge's best sellers. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, this time they're scrambling, she reported. Just got a call from their lawyer. Looks like they're trying to secure an emergency loan. I smiled. Either way, I won. Either I got my money back, or I got Marshall Creek and River's Edge would learn what real competition felt like. With 12 hours left on the deadline, my mother showed up at my office. She carried a thick manila envelope and wore the same expression she'd used whenever playing peacemaker between Andrea and me as children. Your father's had to be sedated, she said, sinking into the chair across from my desk. His blood pressure was through the roof. Are you happy now? I kept my face neutral. What's in the envelope, Mom? She slid it across my desk. The best we can do. We've mortgaged everything we could There's $600. Zero here, that's all the bank would give us. We can pay the rest in installments. I didn't touch the envelope. That wasn't the deal. $850. Zero plus interest, all of it, or Rachel files tomorrow morning. We don't have it, she snapped, her peacemaker facade. Cracking. Andrea's been calling every bank in Texas. No one will give us more. Without wanting to audit the books, and you know we can't allow that now because of what they'd find. I asked quietly, like how you used my investment to pay for Andrea's MBA instead of saving the Vineyard, or how you've been hiding assets in that new LLC. Mom's face went still. How did you? I have copies of everything, Mom, every transaction, every transfer, every fraudulent business expense. Did you really think no one would notice? She leaned forward, switching tactics. Think about what you're doing. If you file those papers, it won't just hurt us. The Vineyard's reputation will be ruined. All those people who depend on us for their livelihood, the workers, the distributors, their families, you'd destroy them all just to spite your sister. Don't you dare put this on me, I said, my voice hard. You and Dad chose this path. The moment you decided to steal my money, you're the ones who put everyone's jobs at risk. Not me. We didn't steal, she began, but I cut her off. Let me show you something. I turned my laptop around, displaying the Marshall Creek property listing. Beautiful. Isn't it? Premium soil, perfect elevation, and enough acreage to double river's edges. Production capacity. The owner accepts my offer tomorrow morning, unless I get my money back. First, Mom's eyes widened as she recognized the property. You can't. That land, it would destroy us. Then I suggest you and Andrea get creative in the next 11 hours. Sell her Mercedes, mortgage the house, call in favors. I don't care how you do it, but I want every penny back. She stood up shakily. You've changed, Jessica. You've become hard, cruel. No, Mom. I've just stopped letting you manipulate me. The money or the lawsuit. Those are your only options now. After she left, I called Rachel to update her. They tried to negotiate. I told her, offered partial payments. Stay firm, she advised. From what I'm hearing, they're desperate. Their lawyers been calling banks all day. Just then my email pinged a new message from the Marshall Creek Realtor owner, eager to close, can meet first thing tomorrow to sign papers. I smiled and wrote back confirming the meeting. Then I texted Andrea. 11 hours left. Tick-tock. Her response came immediately. You're making a huge mistake. Dad's lawyer says we can tie this up in court for years. I sent back a single photo, the view from Marshall Creek's highest point, looking down over river's edge's main vineyard. She'd recognize it from all her Instagram photo shoots. Her response was a string of angry emojis. The clock was ticking, and I had them exactly where I wanted. Then, with just 2 hours until deadline, I sat in Rachel's office reviewing the final paperwork for both scenarios, the SEC filing and the Marshall purchase agreement. The sun was setting over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of red that reminded me of our Cabernet. Their lawyers called for times in the last hour. Rachel said, checking her messages, they're scrambling. Someone named James Turner from First Regional Bank has been trying to reach you. I sat up straighter. James Turner was Andrea's college boyfriend, the one who dumped her for being too high maintenance. He now worked as a loan officer. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Michael, the accountant. Emergency board meeting called at River Edge. Andrea is crying in the bathroom. Your mother's threatening to expose something about your father. If he doesn't fix this, it's chaos. I called James, who answered immediately. The Vineyard's records show serious irregularities. He said, I can't approve their emergency loan request without a full audit, but there's another option. A bank looking to invest in family wineries. They'd require full transparency, but your parents would get more than just a loan. I texted my father, there's a solution, one that doesn't involve me or the SEC. Call James Turner at First Regional. You have 90 minutes. Andrea's response came instantly. You think some bank taking over is better than family? You're destroying Grandpa's legacy. I thought about our grandfather, about the hour he'd spent teaching me about the vines while Andrea played on her phone. His last words echoed in my mind. The grapes don't care about fancy degrees, Jesse, they care about love and hard work. 1 hour left, Rachel said quietly. What now? With 30 minutes left, Michael's updates became more frequent. Your father's reviewing documents with the bank. Andrea's called 3 different loan officers. Your mother's gone through half a box of tissues. I kept my phone close, waiting. The $850. Zero wasn't just about money anymore. It was about making them face the consequences of their actions. Rachel worked quietly across from me, preparing both sets of paperwork. Then my father's number appeared on my phone. The bank wants full control of financial decisions for 5 years, he said, his voice rough plus to board seats. We'd be answering to strangers, better strangers than thieves, I replied coldly. 20 minutes left. If we do this, if we let the bank take over, will you drop everything? Else no sec, no competing. Vineyard, I leaned forward, signed with the bank. Repay my investment with interest, and I'll walk away. You'll never have to worry about me competing with precious Andrea. Again, he was quiet for a long moment. Your mother thinks we should call your bluff, says you won't really F with the sec, that you're too soft. 15 minutes to find out, I said. Tick tock. I hung up and turned to Rachel. Get the sec paperwork ready. But before she could reach for the file, my phone buzzed with an email from James Turner. Subject line documents. Signed. The attached file showed my parents' signatures on the bank agreement along with a transfer confirmation for $850. 0 plus interest to my account. Looks like they chose survival over pride. Rachel said. I nodded, already pulling up the real estate agent number. The vineyard across the valley from Marshall Creek was for sale, to better water rights, lower price. 2 months later, I stood on my newly purchased property, Sunset Valley Vineyard. With its perfect western exposure and rich soil, the view of River's Edge across the valley was just a bonus. I'd used the returned $850. 0 as a down payment, with investors eager to back my venture. After hearing my plans, Michael had resigned from River's Edge the day after the bank took over, and I'd immediately hired him as my CFO. Andrea is having a meltdown, he reported, checking his phone. The bank rejected her proposal for a new tasting room, said something about unnecessary expenses and focusing on wine quality. I smiled, remembering the bank's first board meeting. They'd replaced the Mercedes with a practical truck and canceled the Italian wine tasting tours. Andrea's MBA was proving useless against actual financial oversight. My mother still sent weekly texts about healing the family, which I ignored. My father hadn't spoken to me since signing the bank agreement. But last week I'd received a package that meant more than their words ever could. Grandpa's old leather-bound notebook of Vineyard WIWI, filled with his handwritten notes about soil composition, weather patterns, and grape varieties. The enclosed note reads simply, "This belongs with someone who understands its value, Dad." I held that notebook, now standing among my newly purchased vines. In 3 years, these grapes would produce their first vintage. In 5 years, I'd be competing directly with River's Edge, but I didn't need their validation anymore. I had something better, my own legacy to build. Ready to start planting? Michael asked, gesturing to the work crew waiting with the new root stock. I tucked Grandpa's notebook into my jacket. Let's make some wine.